This is Georgia Public Broadcasting, your PBS station serving all of Georgia.
Welcome, I'm Richard Warner. For 15 years, Atlanta's Jeff Kagan was the go-to guy whenever a national media outlet wanted to comment on the telecom business. Jeff did about 500 interviews with everybody from CNBC to the Wall Street Journal. A few years ago, on a family trip to Hilton Head, he suffered a stroke and spent almost a year in what he calls a sort of dreamland. Doctors said that Jeff wouldn't recover, but today he is back. He's doing interviews, reinventing himself in an industry that is reinventing itself. I don't know if you remember this. We've been on for 30 years, this show has. There was a brief hiatus a while back. 1997, you were our first guest when we came back. I remember this because I got your name of your company wrong and we had to start over. And I thought, oh, horrible start to the show.
So we've known each other for 30 years.
For a long time. And this is probably going to be our last show for a while, so it was fitting to have you back as sort of full circle.
That's great.
You dropped off the face of the earth about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And?
Things were going very well. I was very successful. My business had been building and building and building over the last 15, 20 years. And it was between two events. I was in Las Vegas giving a speech. It was the end of June. And then I had to go to Seattle 2 weeks later to moderate a panel with the CEO of AT&T Wireless and the company they were acquiring. And we had a week off in the middle, so we just decided to take the kids, pack the car up, pack the van up, and go to Hilton Head, go to the beach. It was in the middle of the summer. It was a beautiful day. It was a Sunday morning. We packed up the van. Kids had their friends come. Everybody got in the van. We started driving from Marietta to Hilton Head. And we stopped in Macon to get a cup of coffee because I was feeling tired. So we stopped at the Barnes & Noble there and stopped at the Starbucks. And we all went into the Starbucks, and the kids began to laugh, and I didn't really know why. And they said that I had ordered a cheeseburger at Starbucks. First of all, I don't eat
clue that
I didn't know. I don't eat cheeseburgers, first of all, and I don't order cheeseburgers at Starbucks. So it was, but I didn't know I had done that. So we had gotten back into the van to start heading back to Hilton Head, and I was apparently looking very tired, and my wife asked if she could just drive for a while and I should take a nap. So I did. This never happened before, all of these new things. And I slept all the way to Hilton Head. And it had happened right around Macon. It had happened right around, just before we stopped in Macon. There was no pain. Every stroke is different. It depends where.
It depends on where it happens in the brain.
Exactly. It depends where in the brain it gets clogged. But the part of my brain that died was the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the part of the brain that when you have new information coming in, it labels it and then it stores it. So when you want to remember something, you just look for the label and it pulls it up. I remembered everything prior to that. But from that point forward, anything new that I had learned would go into my mind and it would be gone.
Does it get worse and worse then? You said you slept for days.
I slept. I slept for the entire trip till we got there. My wife woke me up, asked me how to get to the hotel when we actually got there. And it's the same hotel we have been going to for the last 20 years. We were regulars. We know the management. They all know us and treat us like gold. There's the Crown Plaza in Hilton, in the shipyard. And I know the people. We walked up. They would park the car, say, hello, Mr. Kagan. We walk in, we checked in. I thought everything was fine. Everything was a little foggy to me. But I was still functioning. I wasn't...
You thought you were tired?
I thought I was tired. I didn't know what the problem was. And we had, after sleeping all the way there, then we got in, and I laid right down and fell asleep again. We had this beautiful room. They gave us this gorgeous room, oceanfront, and then I fell asleep again. So I slept for another 2 hours, and my wife finally woke me up and said, the kids are hungry. Can we please go out to dinner? So we got in the car, we went, and an hour later we came back, and we went back to sleep again. So I slept the whole night until 7 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know what was happening. There was no pain or no nothing. And my wife, when I came out at 7 o'clock in the morning, said, I want to take you to the hospital. I think something is wrong. And I didn't, at that point, it was...
Didn't find it?
No, I didn't fight. I went with her. And at that point, it was too late for any kind of medication. You know, they have medication that they can give you if you catch the stroke within the first few hours, the first 3 or 4 hours. It'll break up the clot. Now, you'll still have some damage, but at least it's not going to be, you know, mega damage. The problem was it was well past the 3 or 4 hour window. It happened yesterday. So she took me to the hospital, and I spent 3 or 4 days there. And I never even asked them what was wrong with me. I sat on my computer, and I thought I was using my computer connected to the internet, but I wasn't. It was that first day wiped out my mind, and I was still able to function. I was still able to tell my wife I love her and to spend time with the family, because it was just one part of my brain that died. When you have a stroke, it's one part of your brain that dies. The rest of your brain is still fine. So you can walk, you can talk, you can do anything. I was fortunate because no one could tell that I had a stroke, but I did have a stroke.
You went for months, you said, in a fog? I mean, it's kind of like Rip Van Winkle, who had been covering
That's
a
a good
fast-moving
That's
industry.
a great way to do it. I have been covering the telecom industry, which changes every 5 to 7 years. It's a completely different industry. If you think back, 10 years ago we had a long-distance industry, with MCI and AT&T and all the rest of that. We don't have that anymore. And so every 5 to 7 years, it's an entirely new industry. And what I was just taken off of that fast track, and I spent the next 5 or 6 months in a. It's hard to explain. It's hard to describe this because I've never experienced it before, and I haven't experienced it since I've gotten better. It was a spatial area. It was almost like if you got, drunk, or if you got high, or if you got something that people talk about. Because my brain wasn't there. I was functioning. But I was in this la-la land.
Blissfully functioning.
It was the most peaceful, blissful, love-filled place. I was surrounded by my family who loved me. There was no stress. There was no pain. It was just nice. It was like living in a la-la land that I wanted to stay in. But then I started to recover. Then, about 5 or 6 months later, I wasn't able to keep a thought. My children at that point were, between 15 and 20. And they're in that childhood stage where they have a lot of questions and they don't really want to hear what you have to do, but what you have to say. But my son asked me a serious question, and I felt good because I understood the question and I knew the answer. And I opened my mouth to answer him, and I forgot. I forgot the question and I forgot the answer. And I asked him to repeat it, and I had the question and I had the answer. And then I opened my mouth and it was gone. So within seconds, it was gone. Because it went into my mind, the hypothalamus didn't label it, it went in there. Now, as I've recovered over the last several years, the interesting part is I'm able to remember all of those things because the label apparently was put back on somewhere over the last few years. As the spot in my brain that died is gone. But the part around it is able to take over much of what that part that died did.
Doctors said 6 months. Whatever happens in 6 months,
Yep.
however better you get between
Yep.
point A and point B is as far as it goes, as good as it gets, and that's wrong.
And I thought at the end of 6 months, when I went to the doctor and I said, I'm finally starting to recover in the last 30 days, I'm able to actually have a conversation with my brother who came for Thanksgiving.